Hello and welcome to Tilt Astrology. Once again, I have taken quite a long time to put anything out, but I thought, I really need to do this before March, and I've done this one for the United Kingdom. This is for the entire year, and it kind of feels a bit bleak for 2026. I will qualify this straight up and say, don't panic because I checked for March 2027, and whatever happens this year seems to be resolved leading into March of 2027. So nobody panic, as it were. So let me just get into it. So mundane charts. From the technique I use, start on the spring equinox, which is March for you guys, and you judge the first house sign. If it's what they called a movable sign, which is a cardinal sign, you need to do 4 charts, which is March, and then the summer solstice, and then the autumn equinox in September, and then the winter solstice. So this is also taking me a little time because I had to do all 4 charts. So we'll go through them. So first of all, the ascendant is Cancer, which makes the ruler of this chart up until the summer solstice is the moon. And as I've already discussed, the moon represents the common people. So this means the concerns are with the people. So what you'll notice for this starting chart is there's a big pile up in house 9 and house 8. So the outer chart is the equinox, and the inner chart, as it says over here, is when Keir Starmer was able to form a government in 2024. So if you look here, the ninth house represents diplomats, foreign missions. It shows something happening outside of the United Kingdom, something happening overseas. Whatever it is, it's a big area of concern. So Pisces is a water sign. So back in the 16th and 17th century for mundane astrology, it always indicated journeys by ship, which of course was the equivalent of an airliner back in the day. So just consider this as journeys overseas. Now this is an interesting configuration. So the people are here. The significator for the government in general, or the Prime Minister, is here. The significator for comforts and women is here, close to the moon. And Saturn has combust the sun. So Saturn would normally put some sort of delay or constraint into this setup. But in this configuration, Saturn is essentially invisible. So this makes Saturn weak. So things are going to feel strained. There's delays, there's frustration, nothing seems to be resolved. And then you have Venus here, which is comforts, but it also indicates in this configuration long journeys, and that generally people will try to obey the law and hold to their principles. So Pisces is double bodied, which can indicate the outcomes not exactly fixed. It can flip-flop quite a lot, so the outcome's never quite known. And this is crossing the 7th house for the original government with Rahu. So there's an indication there's something in the wind in terms of agreements or contracts, or some sort of something's being broken or not adhered. There's argy-bargy basically, but whatever this is of great concern because everybody is concerned about it, and it's to do with overseas. Something is happening overseas that concerns everyone. Now Jupiter rules Pisces, so Jupiter can represent heads of state, judges, the law, nobility, the rich. So it's in the 12th house of Gemini. So this can indicate profits from enemies, but the ruler of Pisces is Mercury. The ruler of Gemini is Mercury sitting in Aquarius, and it's in retrograde, and it's with Rahu and Mars. So Mercury generally takes on the characteristics of the planets that it's with. So it's with two malefics, so it's going to be malefic in nature. Plus, it's crossing the sixth house where Saturn was originally set up, and it's in retrograde. So Mercury's not kind of in the mood to do anything good here or provide any benefits. So this connects up. Whatever is happening over here is of concern. Now, if we go, and I should also say before I forget, Jupiter is crossing the government here. So 10th house is the government. So there's probably a bit of undertaking in terms of legality, general advice to the government around whatever this situation is. Now, in the 8th house, crossing the 6th, as I've already mentioned, we have Mars, Rahu, and Mercury. So Mars indicates the police or military forces. Mercury tends to be strategists, advisors to the government, business people, traders, communication in general. Rahu in this configuration in mundane charts is kind of indicating it's about diplomatic moves, but it's also about deceit. So the 8th house is never a good house. It's called a grief-producing house in astrology. It represents not great things, delays, obstructions, accidents, debt, epidemics, floods, cyclones. It's basically a catastrophic house. It can represent, people being non-alive. So Mercury's going to try to be diplomatic here. It's too aggressive and it's retrograde. So whatever's going to be attempted is not going to go according to plan. Crossing the 6th house. This is a big pile up and it's a bit of a concern. It can represent a setback to the nation. And then we also have Ketu here crossing in the 2nd house of Leo, which is ruled by the sun, by the government, crossing the 12th. So this could indicate, for whatever reason, trade is not really happening at this point in time. So yeah, the setup is for something happening overseas that is a big concern to everybody. There are some attempts through diplomacy and agreements in the law to try and resolve it. It's not resolved. There's an aggressive kind of indication down here that's not terrific. So if we go to slide 2, which is the summer solstice. So the ascendant swaps over to Leo here. So as it says here, the summer solstice is the 21st of June. So the moon represents the people. The concerns are with the what the mundane charts from that time called the king, but it's the government and the prime minister. The concern is with them. They're kind of the overall focus of the chart. The moon is sitting here with Ketu, which is not terrific. It indicates accidents, the poor, the isolated, can represent violent action. So this kind of indicates that whatever happened from March leads through to June, and then from June onwards, there's, sorry about that, the people aren't feeling particularly positive. So now the interesting thing is the moon goes into Virgo within about 3 hours, so it's not that powerful here. So it's kind of got a foot in each camp. It's also got a little bit of an interest in the 2nd house, but it's not particularly effective in either house because it's getting into a late degree. The sun in this configuration, and it's with Mercury, and it's in the 11th house crossing the 10th of the government. This is not too bad. Mercury is in its own sign in Gemini, but it's also in getting into a late degree and looking at crossing into the 12th. So it's not as effective as it could be. The 11th house in mundane astrology is about international alliances, incomes, gains, future plans. So whatever happens from March until June really propels the government into action. And they're kind of trying to sort things out. They're trying to look at alliances, and with the sun leading the chart, it's trying to do its best to resolve that situation. We have Jupiter and Venus in the 12th house. So this is Cancer, ruled by the people, the moon. So Venus is about material comforts, women, entertainment, art. Jupiter is, as already discussed, judges, the law, financial institutions, and the rich. This is crossing the 11th house on the setup chart, which, as we've already talked about, international relations. So this could be subject to a bit of waxing and waning due to being ruled by the moon. There could be some contention here. Generally, this would show that there's some profit coming from enemies, but yeah, this moon setup may indicate that this is sort of there and it's not, although Mercury in this condition is going to try and help out, although it's getting pretty close to bumping into Jupiter. So then we have Mars in the 9th house crossing the government, the original 8th house. And we get Saturn in the 8th house crossing the 7th. So this is not a configuration I am particularly in love with. It indicates whatever got set up at the equinox is now kind of becoming quite stuck. There's very much an emphasis overseas, very much a military focus perhaps, but again, very late degree. So something is happening, there is focus on it, it's kind of stuck in that condition now, but Mars is, it's in Aries, it's in its own sign, it's trying to do something, but again, it's kind of starting to nudge into Taurus where it isn't as effective. So this is kind of stuck. It's a bit of a stuck configuration at that point. And yeah, nobody's exactly thrilled about it. So if we go to the September chart, which is the autumnal equinox for you guys. So again, first house Cancer. So we're back to the people leading the chart. And Jupiter and Mars are in the first house. So Mars is generally an indication that the enemies are defeated and they're winning. But Mars is in Cancer, which is its fall. So a weakened Mars is more likely to indicate that people are really arguing with each other. There's huge dissension from the people, especially with Mars in Capricorn, directly opposite that first house. And Saturn in retro. Oh, again, did it again. Sorry. Saturn in retrograde. So I think this probably indicates that there is serious dissension, maybe mass protests, real clashes from that. Saturn again in retrograde in the 9th house is pretty weak in this position. Again, emphasis on the 9th house. Something is happening overseas, something to do with foreign affairs or overseas diplomacy. And again, Cato's in the 2nd house, indicating there's problems with trading. On a more positive note, the significator of the government and the ruler, the Prime Minister, and Mercury are in the 3rd house. Again, Mercury is in its own sign and far away from the Sun, so not combust and not in a really late degree. So this is communication, democracy, peace talks. So there's a real effort here by the government to resolve things. Libra is in her own house down here on the 4th crossing the second. So there may be money here, perhaps from natural resources such as agriculture, little hint of stability and peace coming from there. But again, still this weird emphasis on journeys overseas or something happening overseas. So we get to winter and it starts to look pretty good here. Now you'll notice here, so Sun's in the lead position again. Again, the emphasis on the government and the rulers, and Mars is in the first house again. But in this version, Mars is in really good condition. It's in Leo. It's very comfortable here. So I think this is the indication that, yay, we're on the road to whatever this is happening is panning out. You're going to win. It's getting resolved. Jupiter's in a really odd position. It's only just gotten into Leo. Generally, it does okay in fire signs, but it's retrograde. It's about to go back to the 12th. Kind of quite close to K2 if it did. So, again, laws, courts, nobility. So, legal niceties may be on hold. It's about winning, but it's perhaps not being done through legal channels. The Sun is down in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, and the Sun is below the Moon. So the people are kind of in the lead position here, even though this chart is primarily focused on the government. So it's kind of a neutral position here. The people are kind of doing the heavy lifting a little bit. And Saturn remains stubbornly in the 8th house, having this odd relationship with Jupiter. Maybe isn't making it entirely clear what's going on. Mercury is in the 4th house, ruled by Mars. So this is saying to me, Mars is doing a bit of a victory lap. There's quite a lot of negotiations going on, and there's people going to really pay for whatever has happened. Rahu down here on the 6th could go either way, but it's got a connection to Saturn. So there's an uptick in the financial solvency of the nation, and it could be beneficial. But again, Saturn just will not get out of the 8th house. So leading into Christmas, it should be more upbeat. There's signs of a resolution of whatever kicked off in March. And as I said, in 2027, it starts to look positive. Like this all looks like it is cleared up. But if I just go back, you can see. So from March through to June, big emphasis on 9 and 8. Something happens that's a real concern overseas. It happens overseas, and everyone gets involved. Then through to the summer, again, this becomes a bit sticky of people being of something happening overseas. The government's trying to get alliances and everything in place, but in negotiation, people are not happy about it. It's people are like, oh no, what is happening? Autumn, probably a bit of argy-bargy, dissension. There's a push for peace or whatever's happening, but Mars isn't in the condition to kind of do the heavy lifting at this point in time. But the government is stepping up with negotiations and trying to get this under control. This is going to sort of start to settle down a little bit. And then we get to the winter solstice. Yes, absolutely, it's done. Whatever was happening, people probably are going to pay for it. The government's kind of just doing its thing, and the people are probably feeling pretty decent about it. Yeah. So not completely solved, but definitely on the path to being solved, because when we get to March of 2027, this configuration is gone and 9 and 8 are clear. So from December 2026, it starts to ramp down, and we see what's happening. So apologies for the quick run through and the problems with the slides. I just wanted to get it done. I've been distracted and delaying this, and I thought if I don't do this, I will I will never do it. So thanks for being patient, listening to me waffling on about this, and hopefully I'm a little bit quicker with my next video, although I do keep saying that. So it'll be a surprise when I do the next one. Thanks for listening.